and gentlemen. An absolutely, utterly miserable day out today, so there was no trips across the yard, so we're confined in the office for the day. And unlike the last couple of days, thankfully it's a quiet enough sort of day, uh, because there's not too much going on. So with the racing channel kind of broken down, owing to the weather, it's been a case of flicking around YouTube for the afternoon looking for something to entertain me and pass the day. So, two things in particular came to light. A video of a late, great, well-known Irish musician and entertainer, Brendan Grace, God be good to him. A man who I was luckily enough to both see perform and meet in person on quite a few occasions, doing what he called a musical tour of Ireland, where he basically sang a few bars about every county in Ireland out of their best known county song, I suppose we could call it. And as well as that, I also came across a very humorous video depicting how counties, how the accents of different counties sound like when they are pronounced by people from the said areas. So it just gave me a little satirical idea, just for a bit of a laugh, and by way of putting in a bit of time to as my own sort of small tribute to Butler, I suppose, because I know he's over a year dead, and I had meant to actually record something or write something about him a long time ago, but for one reason and another never got round to it. So what I am about to do is we're going to go on a whistle-stop sporting comedy tour of Ireland. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so strap yourselves in while we go on a bit of a funny tour of Ireland in a very short space of time, and you never know what sporting characters we meet along the way. So isn't it only right then that we'll start off in the People's Republic of Cork, birthplace of Roy Keane and the O'Donovans, and many other sporting luminaries, JBM of course, Jimmy Barry Murphy, and I'm sure down in Cork they reckon there should be a statue of JBM somewhere at this stage, but where they might have a different view would be over in Kerry, where they of course would assume that Mick O'Dwyer or Colin Cooper or Paddy O'Shea, God rest him, would constitute God. But when you be down in Kerry, you'd have to go down to Cavan, and sure, if Stephen King was the greatest midfielder that ever put on a jersey in the history of the GAA, and now we would have been very upset about the way the late Neil Tobin used to depict Cavan years ago. But sure, I suppose we gave him plenty of material. Of course, a lot of the time Mayo didn't win All Irelands was because they came across Dublin, who were the greatest team to ever put on a pair of boots in the history of the world. Of course, there's nobody more liable to tell you that than a Dublin person themselves, but the rest of us have to get on with living. But of course, if you're bored listening to Dublin people, you could always go up to Wicklow and we had some great footballers like Kevin O'Brien and Pat O'Byrne and probably Leighton Glynn or best player of the last 25 or 30 years or so, but people like to confuse us with being sort of half dubs, but head down to Galway for a race week at the end of July and sure, isn't it the most important tourist attraction in Ireland that to go to Galway races and sure, there's great old tents down there, and you never know what sort of deals you might get done. Of course, in Galway we have Joe Canning, who was the second coming of God from a hurling perspective, and Cyril Farrell, who seems to have been analysing matches on RTE since the dawn of time, and that. But of course, another man who is analysing matches on RTE for a long time before they decided to get rid of him was Joe Brawley from the county of Derry. Now, of course, Derry has the claim to fame of being the home of one of Ireland's principal musical protagonists in the great Phil Coulter, but it's fair to say that Joe Brawley is front page news no matter where he goes anywhere around the world. Of course, could be said if we head down towards Waterford, John Mullane, of course, is the king of Waterford, and if you ask the people in Waterford, they could nearly say John Mullane should be the king of Ireland because he loves Waterford and loves hurling, and sometimes when they talk really fast on the television you're not really sure what they're saying, but go to the other end of the country then to Fermanagh. They've a completely different droll softer way of talking altogether now. And the best couple of years Fermanagh had, of course, was when John Maughan was managing them a couple of years ago in his shorts. Aye, but sure, he tried to beat Meath a couple of times after they'd beaten Meath in the championship under Dominic Horrigan, but sure, John sort of failed every time he come up against Meath, and being in Fermanagh wasn't going to change that. But over in Monaghan now, they've different ideas altogether about how the game should be played. Hey, they made a bit of an out-of-surgeons there for a couple of years, but at the end of the day, when they come up high to going up to Dublin and taking on the big lads, like, apart from Conor McManus side, they didn't raise much of a challenge at all, but I'm sure in around Scottstown and places like that, they'd still like to put a statue of them up. Of course, like, if you're finished in Monaghan, you could go back down to the Midlands of the country, down to Carlow there now, and Carlow football had a bit of an upsurgence there in the early 90s when a great Éire Óg team come up to Croke Park for a couple of years and should have really beaten O'Donovan Rossett. Whereas if you were done in Carlow, then you could go down for a road trip to Limerick. Now, I know the Cork and Kerry and Limerick accents might sound a bit similar, but in Limerick it tends to be more high-pitched and they talk very fast and they say, "Come here, I want to tell you now that point Kieran Carey scored against Clare and 1996 was the greatest score ever hit on a hurling field. JP McManus is God, and Paul O'Connell, Superman wears Paul O'Connell pyjamas. Then I find myself coming home to Meath, down to North Meath High, especially around Kilmainhamwood or Dundry or somewhere like that now. And sure, I don't know how Tommy Dowd used to play football at all. You'd see Tommy on a windy day and the tongue hanging out of him like a Labrador after a hare hike. I tell you, a team we would have had some great games again over the years now was Armagh. And of course, Armagh had Kieran McGee, who was a bit like a policeman and footballer and leader of the country, all but into one. The day Armagh won the All Ireland in 2002, and the Croke Park stewards couldn't keep the crowd back at all. Of course, the geezer just got up on the steps of the Hogan stand, and geezer just asked the people nicely to move back. And sure, it was like our Lord opening the pearly gates to let people out, because once geezer told everyone to move, sure, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Now, of course, that wouldn't be the Red and Black Sea up in County Down. Now, of course, the Down accent and the Armagh accent sound very similar. But I tell you, one thing that is most definitely from Down is Mickey Linden, and Armagh could never hope to have as good a forward as Mickey Linden if they were there for 100 years. And I mean, even Cyril Farrell commentating on Kilkenny in hurling would say that that as well. But of course, Kilkenny, although Tipperary like to call themselves the home of hurling, we down in Kilkenny could school them any day of the week. And sure, Cyril knows that so well that he now adopts a Kilkenny accent when he is doing RTE. When he's doing the matches for RTE, he nearly talks like a Kilkenny man. And sure, DJ and Henry Shefflin were God and our Lord Jesus Christ incarnated. But sure, then, one place they know very little about hurling is in Donegal, where if you go back to when we were stopped in Monaghan there a few moments ago, Donegal would be something similar with their laid-back approach to life and their droll way of speaking that would nearly put you asleep if you didn't pay attention to them. But mention the word Michael Murphy and they grow by about 3 feet. Of course, next door to Donegal is a place called Sligo, which of course wouldn't be that well known now for the Gaelic football, although we did have WB Yates, and of course probably the best thing to come out of Sligo was undoubtedly Seamus Coleman, even though he is a Donegal man. But of course, while Sligo were black and white, we finish off our run around the counties with a quick pit stop over in Throne. Yet again, another one of the northern counties who sort of all sound the same some of the time, but all you need to know is that Peter Canavan is the greatest man ever to put on a pair of boots. RTE would only love to have him working for them, but of course the lads in Sky are a little bit more civilised, but Mickey Hart will be managing to run until the next millennium.